Welcome to Speak as One. I'm Julie Coriath. Today we have Steve Eckelman here with us. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Good to see you, Julie.
Yeah, good to see you.
This is River.
This is River, the famous River.
He may lay down.
Yeah, or maybe he'll come on the couch with us.
Yeah.
We'll see. Steve is an Emmy award-winning producer for the documentary The Tower. He's an actor. He is an author of the book Sleeping Bees, and he's a part of this really cool series that Yeti is producing on YouTube that kind of highlights your hobbies. Well, one of them is your hobby. You're a swimmer.
Yeah.
And then the other one, you're fishing.
Yeti just asked to follow me around for a day, and they did a film on me doing that. They thought I had a good lifestyle day to day. And so it's called Aquifer Blue, but it's on YouTube.
Yeah, cool. Well, check it out because I think it was really cool. But, we met not by movies or books or anything. We met because one night I was out with friends drinking.
At Justine's.
It's a
great restaurant.
Absolutely. One of my favorites here in Austin. And I was at a point in my life where drinking was not fun anymore. And I was pretty low. And I was hearing this voice inside of me say, when you stop drinking, your life will begin. And that voice for me is God. It might be different for other people, but it's very strong voice. So I'm at Justine's drinking away with friends, not really wanting to be there. And then all of a sudden I hear you're across the table, tell the server, I think, or something like, no thanks, I don't drink. And I was like, you.
Wow. I'm glad I said it loud enough.
I know, I was listening. I was paying attention. But no, I didn't know anybody that didn't drink.
Yeah.
So,
that's interesting and amazing. And then, that just even saying that to a server, I had to learn how to do. It's a kind of at first it was embarrassing. I'd never said that before in a social place. So going to a restaurant is one thing. When I stopped drinking, that I had to learn to not order beer or something and just say, no, because you always get asked if you want to have a drink. And I just learned to say, no, I don't drink. And by then, I was probably kind of proud of being sober and happy about it and didn't feel embarrassed by it. But it was really fun that night. I remember it distinctly, too, and exactly where we were sitting. And I have a connection now to people who are, in looking for maybe that, and I know how to help them. And it's not up to me particularly other than to pass on a message and maybe a phone number and a place to go, and then obviously always be available to talk. So.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, you like saved my life.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
And I say that because you were just so, you were just there and present. And I asked you if we could go to coffee, and you met me and you told me your story. And there was also no pressure from you. Like, you should stop drinking right now, and I guess by that point you had realized that people have to, go along their path and come to that decision for themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's very touching. I almost started crying when you said that. But it was kind of an unlearning. Also, when I stopped drinking, I was learning to be sober, but I was also unlearning telling people what to do, and I started to learn to let people have their own path and their own valid choices. And so I was AA, for example, or recovery advises me to not tell people what to do, which is nice. And so obviously that gives me patience and understanding, and allows another person like yourself to end up making your own decision, not my decision. So.
Well, then it makes it easier to come back to you, because there wasn't a sense of judgment, there wasn't a sense of pressure. There was just you sharing your story, and you recommended an AA app, and I looked at that app every day, but it took me about a year before I called you again. And
Yeah.
we had talked a few times in that year, but, never consistently. We didn't hang out or anything. And so that night when it was my rock bottom, and the next day I got up and I prayed. I was like, if he answers or he texts me back today, then I'm meant to stop drinking for the rest of my life. And I did. I called you and you texted me back and you said something around the fact, like, are you okay? It wasn't, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And I just think maybe you instinctively knew.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting. I'm glad I said the right thing. And then I think there is an honesty that can be an authenticity in being, vulnerable and sober and not having to tell people I'm doing great and not having that face that I can put on when I leave my house to make the world think I'm doing great. And so obviously our conversations were private, so it's maybe a little easier. But I'm not going to grow if I have if I'm not aligned internally, my internal feelings with my external. So I would say recovery is a good platform for me to be authentic in that I can say when I'm doing well, I can say when I'm not doing well. And, for me these days with that, it's more that I'm doing well. We don't tell people to stop recovery once they start doing better. Part of it is being inspired by people who are doing well. And like yourself, you're doing well now, and that's really inspiring.
Yeah, and I'm doing well because, and it is because of you, and so many other people I know that you've helped. And I've asked you a couple of times, like, hey, can you talk to this person? And you've just been so generous around it.
Yeah.
And it was that day, I said, I don't know what to do. And you just said, I'm going to an AA meeting in the morning if you want to go.
Wow.
And I went, and you told me, you said something about Ann Richards not drinking. I remember,
Yeah.
or Ann Richards went to AA or something, and I was like, I kind of needed to hear that because I didn't know a lot about AA except what I'd seen in the movies.
I feel the same way. That hearing about people that had big lives that had gotten sober and whose lives got even bigger afterwards and weren't addled by a substance, that was inspiring. My kind of like famous person Sherpa was maybe Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then Anthony Hopkins, who I used to see in meetings a lot, and he used to say that his first day in recovery was the greatest day of his life, even though he didn't realize it at the time. And that's a person who went on to win, 3 Academy Awards and is still living. And I saw he kind of says something every day, every year on his sober birthday, he says something on Instagram or something. So those are kind of like good examples. And I didn't ever have an example and didn't know it was possible to live that way. So it's always interesting. I'm always being curious and learning. And it's been really fun to find a new way of life after half my life, at least, being the other way. So,
yeah, and this is, I think, a great way to, if you would be open to sharing, I'd love to know about how you were raised and where you were raised and siblings and.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Dallas, and I grew up I was always very curious in life and always interested in people and art and just had an open mind and a curiosity. And so Dallas was pretty good for that, except that it was kind of like a business city. And so more than anything, I would explore things through books, very avid reader as a kid, and through sports maybe, but mainly always, I remember when I was a kid reading encyclopedias constantly about all these people and these lives that I would never see. And I was always like said I wanted to do that and have an interesting life. And that was always my main goal, was to have an interesting life. And it wasn't about a particular job or place or family things. It was really to live. And so I really pushed throughout my life to travel. I was a reporter in Africa when I was 19, and everything kind of started with traveling, I guess, because the rest of the world was a big contrast to Dallas, which was a bit homogenous, at least in my neighborhood, and I didn't know of many paths. Just like not drinking, I didn't know it was possible to have a career creatively, and so what happened for me was, I guess I just started always saying yes as much as possible. My mom used to tell me when I would leave the country, she wouldn't say, "Stay safe, I'm worried about you, check in." She said, "Absorb everything." And that was good advice. And I already kind of knew that, but she gave me permission to do that. And that was always wonderful.
Yeah, absorb everything. That's something I'm now going to share with my kids. Because it is so easy to say I want to worry about somebody or take on that other. Really, it's really projecting on other people, right? Your worry and your concern, and instead of just allowing them to be who they want to be. Is that how you were raised most of your life?
Really was. That was wonderful. There's a balance of good and bad, obviously, in every family environment. But but on the whole, I left the house every day interested and curious. And it was funny because I did wonder a little bit of what to say today, and I was thinking how rare it is to be born. And I looked it up, and it's 1 in 4 trillion that a human will be born. So, what am I going to do with that time and that life? There was a good thing where they were like, in all the oceans in the world, if there's a buoy that's around floating and there's one turtle in the water in all the oceans, the odds when that turtle surfaces that it goes through the hole in the buoy are the same odds of being born a human. And so
I had no idea.
I can either use that gift, which is basically a miracle that anybody's alive, and without being saccharine, I can choose to live, for life and for myself, or against life and against myself. For me, even though I was curious and interested in doing things, I was somewhat against myself. I just did not know a lot, and it took a long time to become fully myself. I found ways to do that later in life. And most of it would have to be to do with discernment, I think, which is proper judgment and proper perception. I think, just like anybody, a lot of my decisions may have been reactive earlier in life instead of my own choice purely. And so, like, I was against Dallas, for example. I did not like Dallas. And so many of my choices back then were about leaving, identifying not as like a banker or something like that. And those in the end turned positive, but they weren't really towards anything. They were leaving something. And so, I don't know, as far as growing up, I think it was helpful to grow up in an environment that I wasn't a part of particularly. It helped me identify actually who I wanted to be. I found a group of friends who, we found each other and figured out how to leave and to live.
You're still all friends today?
Yeah.
That's cool.
We're all friends.
That's cool. When did you start noticing, either internally or by observing through others, maybe learning about mental health? Feeling that something was either off inside you or by observing?
Yeah, well, I remember, if I can make it personal, which is probably smarter and better thing to do. I remember being called into my middle school principal's office and him saying, "Is everything okay?" And I lied and I said yes. And that was when I was maybe 12. And it was even then that I knew, but I did not know how to get better. It would be like somebody saying, and I was becoming very shy. And I would be told, "Steve, just stop being shy." But telling a shy person that is not productive. It makes it worse. And so I also had a fourth grade teacher who I remember that morning. I was in the second row, and he walked over to me. He goes, "Steve, when are you going to get out of your shell?" And that's similar to the other thing of telling somebody to not be shy, but
It's like
I'm not going
shaming.
to say tomorrow. I wish I could get out of my shell, but I kept adding bricks to my shell each time I felt slighted or didn't understand something or couldn't express myself. And so for me personally, that's probably when I felt very kind of heading down a road that I didn't know how to get out of. And that was my own mental health issue. And that's why I became so enamored with alcohol, because when I would start drinking, that would let that go. The shell would kind of melt and I could be myself. And like anybody who drinks, there is a point when you're drinking that everything feels good. And then for me, I just always chased that first feeling when I first drank. I kept chasing that for 30 years. And it was for me a slow boil. There weren't too many big events that happened, but it was kind of like a slow death. And I didn't even have any paperwork with my drinking, which was amazing. But slowly lost myself.
Yeah. So when you were 12, when they were asking you these questions, was it mainly because you were becoming more shy, or were there other
I
things
think it
going
was
on with you?
rebellious behavior.
Were you drinking at that point?
No.
Okay.
But kind of antagonist, basically back row behavior in class, smart aleck, and poor performance, and I don't know exactly what they thought. They thought I had more potential, and that was always a bad word for me, because I was always being told I wasn't living up to my potential. And so I don't know. I'm not going to inventory those people, or how. I know I've done all sort of work on how I got to that point, but they didn't probably nurture me.
No, and this is one of the many reasons I'm wanting to do this, because I don't think teachers or people go around thinking I'm going to try and screw up this child's life by the words I'm using.
Oh.
But there's no thoughtfulness in it. And I understand being shy, and that because at the meetings, I was always the last one in and the first one out. I couldn't even talk then.
Yeah, well, we have that in common.
Yeah,
You're
we do.
allowed to not talk, and that was nice. I didn't talk for 7 months and left. Right
Yeah,
away.
and I always thought too there was something wrong with being shy, and now I just embrace it. I think there's I think that's kind of where my humbleness comes in too.
Yeah, well, shyness. I wanted to get away from it, but I just didn't know how. And so getting words past my teeth in recovery was helpful. To learn that I wasn't going to be criticized and given a plan after I spoke was really helpful. And I don't know, I guess I just started to feel better and more full as a person. My heart and my soul and my brain started to work more in concert and be more aligned. And so being able to express myself felt good, and I didn't get any bad reactions either.
Yeah.
It has been important for me a little bit to be more assertive and communicating. I'm naturally quiet, and so shyness was something I did overcome, but I still like to be alone. I like solitude a lot, and it fulfills me and gives me energy. And so that's the kind of personality type I am. But I protect that now, and the ways I do that for my mental health are I go to places that I choose that I like and aren't overly stimulating. And same with people. I choose to be with people that are healthy and happy, and hopefully an additive thing. So I'm constantly doing that in my life. And I guess my goals these days are I don't want to add any dysfunction to my life. That includes a new person. If I sense that they're going to be dysfunctional, it's important for my mental health to not become stuck to them. I used to probably do that a little bit, and I know how to not do that now. And the same thing with my daily routine. If I eat out a lot, so if I go to a restaurant where I don't like the vibe, I probably won't ever go back.
Yeah.
Not more so than the food.
Well, and setting boundaries, and protecting yourself, in my opinion, really helps create that safe space in your body, so then you can be more of your whole self.
Yeah.
Which then ends up operating in a better way for your whole community.
Yeah.
When you start setting healthy boundaries for yourself, you're really helping everyone around you.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn that until 5 months ago.
It'd be nice. It'd be nice to. Well, I feel like I've had two lives where the curiosity and the interest is still a constant, but it's in a better, more refined, efficient direction now, and I have more energy. A happier, very happy person. I can be of service and make good choices. It's all like making good choices through the day for me. And I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of my life, but hopefully, I'll die sober. And who knows? In between then and now, I want to be able to discern how to live well.
Yeah. It seems like, so from 19, you're in Africa, and then you've continued to travel and do a lot of things in your life. When did drinking start to take over?
Yeah, well, I would say the first drink for me. I became addicted to it because the first drink was so good. It felt great, and it really was helpful. There's nothing, I'm not against drinking particularly, because for me, when I was 14, it really soothed all the feelings. It helped me be more myself and my ideal self. And the problem though is that, as they say, I took the drink, and then the drink took me, and that's what happened to me in my life. So I was sober from 0 to 14, and then drank from 14 to 47, and I just turned 57, so I've been sober about 10 years since then. And it is, this part of my life feels more like my childhood again, and that's been what my overall goal has been for my mental health, has been to go back to when I was happiest, and that gave me a mark to get back to. So I do things that help me with that. I want to grow backwards in life. I don't want to grow up. I want to grow back to when I was 10 years old. And I found a way to do that. And I try to do that every day. The way I activated that was I drove to Dallas a few years ago and drove to my elementary school. And it was 4 p.m, and the classes were out. And I went into the school, and I immediately smelled, that can take us back, this school that I was at when I was, 10, and I saw the writing on the walls, like way to go from the teachers encouraging kids and the crayon and stuff, and started to get a good feeling. But and then I walked up to my fourth grade classroom, which I had remembered, because I used to sit in it and stare out the window all the time at the toll road and at a grass field. But I sat in that classroom and I remembered who I was. And I needed to do that action sort of to get my mental health back. I sat there and I remembered that I was an innocent person, naturally. I was optimistic and I thought well of others. I had energy and I wanted to go run to recess. and that gave me a remembrance physically to be there, to get to become healthy again mentally. And so it gave me a vision. I can always go back to that classroom in my head and remember who I am. Because sometimes in the day, with all the stuff that we're up to, I forget who I am and start buzzing around without any direction. But so that's been my kind of journey, is just to grow down, become more grounded, so that I want to make my living with my imagination. So I need to stay grounded most of the day, and then let my mind fly when I want.
I love that so much. I read, I don't know if it was in Sleeping Bees but I read somewhere there was a tree that you would always.
Yeah, it's a magnolia tree in Dallas, and kind of like my lonerism and traveling, it was a safe place to go. And I used to climb up into this tree, about 40 feet high, and magnolias are great climbing trees. And I used to sit in there and watch the cars go by and think, and then I didn't ever bring anything to read up there, and there weren't any phones or anything, so I was just up there. And I always felt good up there. And that's one thing I have not done that I just reminded me of, is to keep climbing trees.
Oh, I love it. I can really, I look up to the way you're living your life, because I'm trying to learn to grow backwards as well, and just remember the times that I really enjoyed growing up. For me, it was like riding my bike.
Yeah.
I could have I couldn't go far. I could only go up and down my street, but I was just like up and down my street all day long. I just thought it was the best. But yeah, really doing things, for my mental health that are freeing of my mind, which is, I don't ride a bike anymore, but Town Lake for me is, I have to be outside. I have to be walking around that water. It gives me energy. The trees give me energy. The birds, just like everything, it just feels like it's coming in, and I just love that. And with my kids, I really try now. I've become a different parent when I stop drinking, because now I'm going to be in it with them. I'm not thinking about the next drink.
Wow, that must be amazing. I don't have any kids, so that must be interesting. And then they do talk about passing the bundle if people in recovery have children, and whatever dysfunction was passed on to me, I can stop passing it on if I have kids. And that's all. It sounded interesting to me.
Yeah, I believe that, and I can see it. It's not to say things will be perfect or they won't have their deals, but I feel it.
That's like one area that you do that is removed, which is amazing.
So can you tell us about your rock bottom, the day, or what kind of that week that led you up to that, and then how you went? Did you go to AA, or what was your recovery like?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, rock bottom, I guess. for me, I did hit rock bottom, but I didn't know it. And it's like rock bottom hit me more than I hit it.